pleasure and frustration, or as I like to call it, digital art. Well, hello there, I'm dwarf. What I'm about to tell you is a tale of frustration, a tale of ambition maybe, a tale of biting more than I can chew. It's the tale behind this drawing. And I would like to be clear, this is by no means about drawing, at all. I think I did great, just not as great as I wanted to be. That's what I want to talk to you about today. Don't forget to subscribe for bi-weekly drawing videos. This character design represents a dwarf. I really wanted to draw a fantasy character. I don't usually draw fantasy stuff. I like dragons are cool, but besides that, I don't care much for fantasy. I'm not that into dwarves, elves, orcs and this sort of stuff. But I wanted to design a character with a nice shape, and a dwarf is nice for that because they are very round and you can make pretty cool silhouettes. I guess an armored orc or something could work too, but for a dwarf it's even simpler. On the other hand, an elf is pretty much just a dude, and that's boring. The style I was looking for during this drawing process is the sort of art style you can see in cover of video games, or in the art made for video games and tabletop games. It's very Dungeons and Dragons-like. You see the sort of style I mean? I started working on the sketch with that idea in mind. I had to redo the sketch once or twice because I had a very specific picture of how the character would look. Having the right perspective on the dwarf stance is crucial. It is a 3/4 perspective, and because he's a dwarf, having the point of view a bit above his head gives the character a smaller size, even without any indication from the background or anything. The huge beard and overall burly body structure also heavily implies that he's a dwarf, so it's not hard to imagine his size. My approach for the sketch is circles, or rather spheres. For a complicated design, it is always useful to break it down into the simplest shapes possible. This character has a very round aesthetic, so his body and belly is a huge sphere. The head too, each arm and the thighs following the body shape. I am adding lines on top of lines to the point that I need to add even more lines to know which ones are which. As far as shape language goes, I am purposefully mashing stuff together to make the dwarf even more squat. The long curly hair being forced around the shoulder, back and helmet, and of course the belly and the belt taking over the thighs, and hanging because of their weight. Again, this is shape language to express the character's body language. He's strong, he is sturdy, he's a small mountain. He's rock solid is what I mean, which is perfect for a mining dwarf with a shovel in hand and pickaxe as a cane. I wanted to add a light on top of his helmet and a big backpack on him to add to his story. You can imagine he's being out mining for days, weeks, even longer, who knows. Additionally, the square backpack contrasts with its round shape and makes a very pleasant silhouette. So far, the sketching is going absolutely great. It's even to the point that I want to keep the sketch. His facial expression is on point, you can really read how dirty it is and how he doesn't care about it. With a sketch like this, you have a very good base on which to paint. A complex drawing is only as good as the sketch can hold. If the sketch is wonky, everything will be, but here, the sketch is good. What isn't, is my skills in painting. I had to start this video by really telling you how great this sketch is. It is really important that you understand that, to later understand how deep the frustration goes when nothing is turning out as planned. At first I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep the sketch. I love it and I love the dirtiness of it. One thing I knew, I didn't want to do line art. But maybe I should have in retrospect? I'm not sure, even at this point. What I'm doing for now is keeping the sketch and flattening the whole silhouette. My attack plan is to use flats at first to lay the first color parts. After that, I'll paint over the whole thing. I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it though. My color palette is very earthy. Lots of greens, browns, even dirty cream color for the beard, who is bound to turn yellow if, like this dwarf, you don't wash very often. When I have all my colors and it covers the whole silhouette, I merge all my layers and use that as my base for clipping masks. Now I can paint over the whole color layer, but I still have the original layer from which I can pull color-based selections. That's useful when I want strong edges between the shapes, like when I shade the shirt, but I want to keep the chest plate unshaded. That is basically my approach. From there on out, I'm not sure what to explain, it's just a lot of push and pull using a soft round brush at around 80% opacity. I mostly color pick and sometimes turn the values down a bit to shade, then pick the original color back and work the edges by going back and forth. Doing this area by area, I make sure that my lighting is consistent, that it gives the character shapes the three-dimensionality that it deserves. Really, my problems come knocking on the door during this never-ending push and pull. I don't know where to stop, or even if I should stop. What is the next step after that? I'm a science guy, and I always rely on logic a lot, even for drawings. I like to have things planned out. I prefer when I have a list of steps, and I'd be happy to move on to the next step when this one is done. Unfortunately, for this kind of drawing, it doesn't work that way. I can't simply go and say, alright, shading is done, moving on to the next thing. And I don't have enough experience to just follow my heart and make it look good and realistic. I'm simply stuck. In theory, I know what I should do, but in practice, I have no idea how to achieve what I want. Usually in this case, I leave the drawing alone, go do something else and get back to it the next day. I did this painting over 3 weeks, each time hoping that a break would help me refocus and see the bigger picture. One of my inspirations for digital paintings is Christopher Y on YouTube. If you don't know him, he makes really cool art and he uploads full digital processes, making videos that are several hours long. You can really see each step he takes, what his setup is. Really, you can see everything. And yet, the difference in skill becomes obvious when I attempt to do the same thing. I mean, that's just it, right? I am definitely lacking experience. For example, I really need to work on textures. In my art, the chest plate and the shirt look way too similar in textures, as does the skin, the leather, the hair, everything. I think something that is true with painting is that details do a lot. Things you just take for granted but are there, and if they're not, the art is simply not right. I'm talking slight saturation changes in the skin depending on the light. I'm talking hardness of edges on the folds of fabric. The way light interacts between two textures that are different. These are things I know in theory, and even in that I could improve. I don't know how to implement it, however. I guess the only plan going forward is to gain more experience. Practice and practice again. Do character studies and a shit ton more renders. I think as I stand in art, I'm confident I have the potential to draw whatever I want. Ask me to draw something and I will. You can do that in the comments, by the way. I can sketch away until I draw what looks right. But rendering is a whole new problem. This is why these days I've done a lot of lineless art. I stopped relying so much on my sketch and my line art, instead trying to make it look more real, meaning good renders and less lines. I'm just far from perfection, which is completely normal. I'm a physicist by trade, right? I'm not a professional artist. This is why this artwork, this work in progress I could say, it's the right mix between pleasure and frustration. I can definitely draw a dwarf. I can paint a dwarf. I just can't create something as good as I want it to be. There is a huge difference between the picture in my mind and the picture on the canvas. Pleasure and frustration. That's why I call this video that. It's not clickbaity enough, it's probably not even a good title. I don't know how many views this video will get, but I think it's important I make it that way. If not for you viewing it, then for me. I spent 4 hours and 20 minutes on this painting. That's the length of the footage I'm displaying here. And this is not a finished piece. It's just another file I can add to the folder of unfinished artworks. I will make a part 2 to this video. I can't tell you when, but I will, because I'm gonna grind and learn and get my skill level up. I really love this character design and I want to do it justice. So watch me do just that and get better at it. This is a strange video. I don't know how to finish it. I guess you can subscribe so you can watch part 2 when I make it. You can definitely like the video to encourage me and leave me comments telling me your thoughts and what you want to see me draw in the meantime. Test me. Challenge me. I can draw anything. I'm Dwarf and that's the video. Bye!